Hey, what's up guys? In one of the recent videos, we talked about how to edit your time-lapse sequences to produce these time-lapse videos. And a lot of the comments that came in about that video, which you can watch on the card showing up on your screen right now, had to do with the accompanying music that went along with it. So I wanted to show you how you can make your time-lapse videos pop a little bit more using something like music accompaniment. And one of the things that I like to do with this is use classical music with time-lapse, because you have a lot of layers to the music and you have a lot of options of where you can cut clips in and out. So on my computer screen I have several clips of a sunrise sequence over multiple days that I captured in time-lapse form, and I wanted to show you guys how to use that with music to make your time-lapse pop a little bit more. So let's jump into my computer screen here. So on my screen you can see I have several different clips of some time-lapse sequences that you can see over on the left side of your screen. Now I'm using Premiere Pro, which is an Adobe platform, and I get it with my Creative Cloud account. You don't have to use Premiere Pro to use this technique that we're showing you. You can use something like Final Cut. You can use the free software that came on your computer. Whatever you want to use, you don't have to spend the high dollars to do that. You just have to know where to cut your time lapses and some effects that you can add to it as well. I'm just using Premiere Pro, and just follow along here and implement it to whatever software that you're using too. So I have several videos here, like I said, of this sunrise sequence, and what I like to do is find a good starting point, and I think this one is a good starting point. Even though it is a actual sunset, what I can do is reverse this clip and flip it and get it to where it looks like the sun is rising and having that first start to the day. So that's what I'm going to do first. So basically I'm just going to find a good point to cut in with this, which will actually be the out point, and I'm going to have it start out black. So I'll do out there, and to do in and out I'm just hitting my I for in and O for out keys for this time-lapse sequence, and I'm just going to click and drag this in. Now for my music, since I already have that first clip in, what I'm going to do is have my music and drag it over to the bottom here to have that underlying musical tone. Now you may be asking yourself, well, okay, adding music to a clip is one thing, but where do I actually find this music to add to it? Because you don't want to get into copyright infringement or anything like that. I use something called Epidemic Sound, and this isn't sponsored by them. It's just a platform where you can use royalty-free music to add to your video sequences, and really high quality audio to add to your time-lapse sequences. So I've included that in the link below, both in the comment sections pinned to the top and also the video description. It is an affiliate link, so I get a little bit of the kickback off of that. But if you want to use Epidemic Sound, it's probably the best that you can use. And to play it, it sounds a little bit like this. So as you can see, we have rhythm that accompanies the time-lapse itself, which is exactly what I want. What I'm looking for are peak notes that really hit, and that would be good places to cut the clips and transition to the next sequence. So I'm looking for high keys on the piano. I'm looking for a consistent beat that I can use to cut the clips and switch to the next one, because you don't want to switch in just kind of a random spot. You want to have that good hit on the music that you can switch over to the next clip to. So to get this exactly where I want it, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to speed and duration. I'm going to go to reverse speed to get that right. And now it looks as though the sun is rising. And now I have the clip where I want it of the rising sun coming up, and where I can transition to the next one. So since I have this sun coming up now, I want to look for somewhere along the music timeline or the audio timeline where I drag that music clip in to find a good high piano key to have this featured correctly. So I'm just going to play through, and you can hear that piano, that high twirl of the keys that's exactly where I'm going to cut, and it's very close already to where that is. So I'm just going to have my keyframe selector here and zoom in a little bit, and I want to get it just right where that occurs. So I can just use my arrow keys to drag along here, and once I hear that high note right about there, that's where I know I want to cut this. So I'm going to click and drag that clip over to have it extend. I always like to do a longer time lapse more than a shorter one, just because it gives me options like this. If I want an extra second, an extra 2 seconds, I have that to play with. So I'm not just having a 10-second time lapse. This one is actually 21 seconds long, and it gives me a lot of ability to adjust where I want that keyframe to end and where I want the next sequence to begin at. So let's just play this through and make sure it hits on that piano key. And it does. So that's exactly where I want it. And now, since I have this cut right where I want it, I want to be sure the next clip makes sense in where I'm cutting in. So I want very similar lighting. And since this is so yellow, I'm going to use this next sunrise where you kind of have this time lapse panning out and you have the sun rays coming into the valley. So I'm going to click and drag this over and have that come in right in the next clip sequence, and I'm just going to repeat the same process. Do it again. I'm going to look for a high key, I'm going to look for a beat, I'm going to look for a piano key, maybe a horn or a violin comes in. I'm going to look for those peaks in the music to make that transition to the next sequence. So I'm just going to click and listen to this as it plays through. And I'll probably do it right there. And since I have a longer sequence here, I can again click and drag this because the most interesting part is near the end. So I'm just going to click and drag this to make it short, and I'm just going to pull it to where it locks to that out point. I'm going to click and drag and have it start at the beginning. So here's what we have so far with this sequence. Right on that piano key. And then when that next piano key hits, you have the next sequence starting. So again, we're just going through the motions here. Let's switch it up and have where that light has already come into the valley. Now we have the fog kind of hitting and drifting away. So I can click and drag this sequence back in and have all that fog playing right here. And I'm just looking again for another high piano key to have that transition. And I like the transition here because from this point on in the sequence, the fog has already dissipated, so the interest level in that clip is over, so I don't have to worry about including that in the final sequence. So you kind of get the point here of how we're going through the process of this sunrise and going through the day of the clouds moving around and the atmosphere of the location. So once you have all that completed and you have a full musical time-lapse accompaniment to your video sequences and you look for those hits in the music to transition to, you get a final product like this. So once again, you don't have to use Premiere Pro. This is a very simple technique to add pop and interest to your time-lapse sequence and just make the music accompany the actual sequences. If you want to get really technical about it, you can add some sound effects in to where clouds move overhead, or you get thunder if it's a storm in the background. So you can do all sorts of things with audio effects and audio engineering with your time-lapse sequences. If you want to watch the full playlist on how to edit and create time lapses, you can click or tap on the playlist showing up right now.